The economy has been stalling for well over a year. Now it's actually gone into reverse.
This is Ed Balls, former Shadow Chancellor, talking about George Osborne and his handling of the economy.
It just confirms what businesses and families up and down the country know. People aren't investing, they're not spending, people are really under pressure. George Osborne today is trying to blame everybody else.
He's not really saying anything that harsh here, but you would imagine they were bitter rivals, each with staunch beliefs that their approach would be the best for society. Labour on the side of the working individual and the Conservatives on that of big business.
He should take some responsibility. It's his decision to raise taxes and cut spending too far and too fast, which has choked off this recovery, and he needs to change course quickly.
So it comes as a little bit of a surprise that Balls is starting a podcast with Osborne and that they're now frenemies, with Balls even being invited along to Osborne's wedding. Don't forget, this is the same wedding where, dear God, no! A protester threw orange confetti over Osborne. Whatever next? Now, before we go to a reaction on Confettigate from Owen Jones, appearing on Good Morning Britain, a show that is now, by the way, presented by Ed Balls, I want to say that with Osborne being the architect of austerity, putting in place policies that slash services, cut back help for the vulnerable, and it's widely accepted as being credited for over 300,000 excess deaths, I wouldn't go anywhere near this if I was Balls. It would be like palling up with a serial killer. Do you not have any principles, Balls? Anyway, here's Owen Jones on the matter.
I've been very deeply angered by things George Osborne's done. Yeah. And I've been deeply angered by things George Osborne's done. I was deeply angered by the depth of the police cuts. I hated the way in which he stigmatised people claiming tax credits and claimed that somehow people on tax credits were sitting behind the curtains, lazing around.
Yeah, he whipped up hatred against some of the most vulnerable people in society.
But you don't need to tell me that, because I know that.
Yeah, but what I don't like about Ed is I think the case in point is you having a podcast with him now where it's all kind of buddy and, you know, we're best mates and all the rest of it, because I think it undermines how serious what he did is.
Well,
as an example,
I hear what you say, but I think it's possible, Owen, to be civil to people and disagree.
Well, yeah, but I talk about civility. You just mentioned an issue about civility there. And that's a really good point about the way George Osborne whipped up bigotry against people who didn't have a voice.
I disagree with him on that.
No, the reason I get frustrated about it is what we get outraged about in politics and what we don't. There was an academic study by the University of Glasgow which found that because of austerity policies pursued by George Osborne, there were excess deaths. That's deaths.
You're losing the room, Owen.
Do you know what I'm doing? My job here, like your job,
losing the room.
Listen,
it's
my job is to say what I think.
You're losing the room.
Not what I think is popular. No, I'm going to say this.
We're talking about Thea Rogers, who's a woman who's worked for the BBC, she worked for Tony Blair, she worked for George Osborne, she's getting married.
Ed, I know you're best buddies with this guy now. I know you're best buddies with this guy and all the rest.
We did ask you in for your opinion.
I know.
Let's allow him to state it.
Okay, I'm saying...
Whether I'm best buddies or not...
Here's a shovel. Here's a shovel.
Because of his policies...
Debating points aside...
Am I allowed to say anything?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
No, you can carry on.
Debating points aside...
Excess deaths of 330,000 people. 330,000 people who suffered premature deaths because of austerity policies imposed by George Osborne.
Do you think this protester was an austerity protester?
We don't literally know nothing about this protester. My point is...
Except they used orange confetti, what we get
outraged about in British politics are things like orange confetti rather than the human consequences. How many families' days were ruined by George Osborne slashing the benefits of families? You can say all you want, but I find that more egregious. When I spoke, I'll give you an example. I spoke to a mum. No, I'm going to say this quickly. I spoke to a mum. Ed, I spoke to a mum when a few years ago, she had a daughter. Her daughter died. She had a spare room as a consequence under the law of the bedroom tax imposed by George Osborne. Now, you might find that. You might think, well, that's just politics and policies, and that's different, and we can disagree, and throwing orange confetti is a real outrage. I am personally more outraged by the human consequences of what politicians do.
Click here for a little bit more about that Osborne.